This is Desaliny. I'm going to get a move on today because I've got an awful lot to fit into this video. But just to introduce things, I've already done 2 videos recently. I'll kind of pop them up there somewhere, where I've been talking about compilations of the kind of 80s and 90s. There is kind of a third category which kind of bridges everything. And these really kind of came to fore during exactly the same period that I was talking about in those videos. Yeah, I'll be covering charity stroke tribute compilations. So these would be compilations which are either, all the tracks were submitted with the intention of, raising money for a charity, or all the tracks are kind of cover versions or interpretations of songs by a specific artist. The reason I'm including them and packaging them both together is often these two things coincided. A tribute album would be for a specific charity. Hope that makes that bit clear. Yeah, this isn't going to be an exhaustive list. There's a lot in it, but I'm sure I will have ended up missing out maybe some of your favourites. Comment below if there's anything you think that I've missed out that is particularly egregious. But I'm trying to cover this specific period kind of from the mid-80s through to the mid-90s. Quick one to start off. A charity compilation called Animal Liberation from 1987. Bit of an odd one, this. It's kind of curated, put together by Al Jorgensen of Ministry. He did all the kind of the little linky bits between the tracks, but he never actually committed a single track to it as Ministry or one of his other kind of projects. It's kind of all original songs, this one, and a really kind of odd mix of artists. You get kind of Lean Lovitch, you get Shriekback, you get Captain Sensible, and you get Howard Jones. Bit of an oddball, this one, but this is from 1987. Okay, on to 1988, and this is the first of the big kind of tribute ones that I can really pinpoint. It's called Stay Awake, music from vintage Walt Disney films. This was kind of produced, created, curated by a guy called Hal Wilner, who would do numerous of these kind of tributes in subsequent years. He was the driver behind ones towards Kurt Weill, tributes to Thelonious Monk, Charles Mingus. Hal died a couple of years ago during the COVID-19 pandemic of complications arising from COVID-19. He was only 64 years old. Anyway, some highlights of this compilation. You get kind of Natalie Merchant and Michael Stipe doing their version of Little April Shower from Bambi. Tom Waits does Hi Ho, hilariously, very dark, from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. The Replacements do Cruella de Vil from 101 Dalmatians. And there are also plenty of other contributions from artists like Bonnie Raitt, Los Lobos. You get Sun Ra, Suzanne Vega. There's a lot on here. It's quite good fun. Also in 1988, we get Till Things Are Brighter. This was for charity and it's a tribute. It's one of those ones which kind of covers both of today's topics. This was put together by John Langford of the Mekons and Mark Riley, ex of The Fall and his own band, The Creepers. He's now a Six Music DJ here in the UK. This was kind of put together with the express consent from Johnny Cash. They met him backstage at one of his concerts and said, we're thinking of doing this. He said, fine, John and Mark put together a band, hastily recorded all the backing tracks, and then subsequently kind of enlisted various vocalists to do their kind of take on top of that. Proceeds for this went to the Terence Higgins Trust, which is a very well-known kind of HIV/AIDS sexual health charity here in the UK. Mark Almond of Soft Cell does The Man in Black. Pete Shelley, the Buzzcocks, does Straight A's in Love. There's kind of an older Johnny Cash number here called Country Boy, done by David McCombs of the Triffids. And also Ring of Fire, one of Johnny Cash's most famous songs, a song by Cathal Coughlan, the late Cathal Coughlan, who very sadly died earlier this year. Of kind of micro Disney Fatima Mansions fame. Very sadly missed. Again, 88, I said these things really kind of took off kind of at this period. And we get Sgt. Pepper Knew My Father. This was kind of, again, had a link with the NME. It was NME produced, and it was for the Childline charity, which is kind of a UK child abuse kind of child welfare charity. This compilation was a huge hit, thanks to the kind of the #1 success of the single that was released from it, which was Wet Wet Wet's version of With a Little Help from My Friends. In case you didn't get it, the whole album is the Sgt. Pepper album with individual tracks covered by different artists. That was the Wet 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 choice, and that was made the single. It was a double A-sided single with Billy Bragg on the other side doing She's Leaving Home. Yeah, this was very, very successful at the time. The Childline charity had a very, very high profile because of this. There's an annual kind of BBC fundraiser telethon thing called BBC Children in Need. It was very kind of high in people's consciousness at the time, and subsequently the album got an awful lot of promotion. Yeah, there's some really cool and interesting covers on here. You get The Wedding Present and Amelia Fletcher of Heavenly Tallulah Gosh fame doing Getting Better. Sonic Youth, they have a go, of course, at George Harrison's track here, Within You Without You, the sitar number. And The Fall get to have a go at A Day in the Life. Quite a faithful cover version, this one, but yeah, shot through with, that Marquis Smith thing. And also in 88, we get Fast and Bulbous, a tribute to Captain Beefheart. This was through the Imaginary Records label, quite a small kind of label from the north of England, from the Manchester area, I believe, who would kind of dig themselves out a little niche doing these kind of tributes over the years. I think they were released in the USA via a different label. I think it was Communion. You get XTC doing Alaguru. Sonic Youth, again, popping up, this time doing Electricity. They seem to pop up on a lot of these tribute albums. They seem to really enjoy cover versions. The Membranes, they do a version of Ice Cream for Crow. And I kid you not, the Mock Turtles, of all bands, cover Big Eyed Beans from Venus. It's a real thing. It's quite a faithful cover version, actually. So, good on you, Mock Turtles. Okay, 1989, and we get another one of the big ones. I remember this being quite a big deal at the time. This is The Bridge, a tribute to Neil Young. This came out on Caroline Records, and a proportion of the proceeds went to, Young's kind of charity foundation, which is called the Bridge School, set up by his then wife, Peggy. Yeah, the Bridge School was set up to kind of promote the use of technology to help kind of children with severe disabilities or impairments, to help them communicate better during the kind of learning process. Yeah, this is a really, really good one. There's some great tracks on this one. You get the Pixies doing Winterlong, which is kind of quite an obscure number from Neil Young's triple kind of decade compilation album. I don't believe Winterlong got released on any of his other main albums. So yeah, this was quite a rarity, and it's a great cover. Yeah, Nick Cave does Helpless. You get Loop doing Cinnamon Girl. And again, Sonic Youth, here there again, this time doing Computer Age, which is a kind of quite an odd choice. This is from Neil Young's kind of, synth techno period where he was using vocoders and everything. That album was called Trans. So yeah, Computer Age, very interesting choice. Yeah, there's a bunch of other really great bands on here. You get Dinosaur Jr., The Flaming Lips, Soul Asylum. Very highly recommended, this one. Okay, 1990, and we get Red, Hot and Blue. This was the first of many of the Red Hot compilations. The Red Hot organization is kind of a dedicated charity, a music kind of pop culture charity, raising money for AIDS. So yes, this was a series of charity albums. They would release many, many more. Red Hot and Dance in 92, Red Hot and Bothered in 95. And there's one which is specifically not called Red Hot anything. That was called No Alternative. I'll probably talk about that one. That one's from 93. More later on that one. Yeah, Red Hot and Blue specifically featured artists covering the songs of Cole Porter. It wasn't just released as an album. There was also a video compilation with just about every track on this getting its own music video. Some of these had, pretty kind of big name directors as well. U2 did Night and Day, and they had their video directed by Wim Wenders of Paris, Texas fame. Debbie Harry and Iggy Pop did a version of Well, Did You Ever? I remember this getting lots of MTV play. That video was directed by Alex Cox, director of Repo Man, amongst other things. Sid and Nancy also. Yeah, Sinead O'Connor does You Do Something to Me. That video directed by John Mabry, who's most famous for directing her Nothing Compares to You video. And you get a bunch of other artists doing songs of Cole Porter. David Byrne, Nana Cherry, Tom Waits, the Jungle Brothers. Yeah, on to 91 and a tribute album. I don't think there's any charity connection with this one. Anyway, this one's called I'm Your Fan, which is a tribute to the music of Leonard Cohen. The title, in case you missed it, is a pun on his song I'm Your Man. Again, this was one which got a lot of promotion at the time. Lots of big artists on this one. You get REM doing First We Take Manhattan. The Pixies crop up again doing I Can't Forget. Yeah, some very big Leonard Cohen songs, some very famous Leonard Cohen songs here, covered by indie artists. The House of Love do Who by Fire. Lloyd Cole does a version of Chelsea Hotel. Yeah, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. They do Tower of Song. This album has a 6-minute version of that. But apparently, it is out there if you search around. There's a 30-minute jam of the band doing Tower of Song, just exploring different kind of musical styles throughout this kind of crazy 30-minute jam. It's well worth hunting that down. Yeah, I think most famously, this is the first appearance of someone covering Hallelujah, in this case, John Cale, ex of the Velvet Underground. Yeah, John Cale's version is the one that kind of first brought this song out of, relative obscurity for a Leonard Cohen song. And yeah, this is probably responsible for it being one of those kind of perennial talent show kind of teary montage staples for years. Yeah, it also featured in Shrek, the movie, if you recall. Okay, here's a run of 3. Heaven and Hell, a tribute to the Velvet Underground, volumes 1, 2, and 3, released in consecutive years, 1990, 1991, 1992. Again, this is one of those Imaginary Records compilations that I mentioned earlier. I think it was the Captain Beefheart one. Yeah, Imaginary really kind of turned this into quite a lucrative little line. And they had their takers. These kind of compilations were mixtape gold. If you were putting together a tape for someone and wanted to kind of throw them in a bit of a curveball, yeah, these were great for that. You could do an artist that no one was expecting covering a Velvet Underground song. Yeah, lots of very cool takes on Velvet Underground classics by some of the big bands of the period across these. Yeah, on volume 1, you get Nirvana doing Here She Comes Now, The Wedding Present doing She's My Best Friend, Ride do a version of European Sun. Yeah, and a bunch of bands on volumes 2 and 3 from the Fatma Mansions, Peter Hook's solo project Revenge, Swerve Driver get a song on one of these. Bands like Half Japanese, New Fast Automatic Daffodils. Yeah, very kind of diverse set of bands and artists across these 3 volumes. Yeah, 1992, here's a tribute one. Yeah, this is Surprise Your Pig, a tribute to REM. Yeah, this is an odd REM tribute. It was released on a tiny label called Staple Gun, which I think has something to do with Twin City Records from kind of, the St. Paul, Minnesota area. Yeah, lots of kind of pop punk, post-hardcore bands. Some really odd choices too, doing covers of their favourite REM songs. Yeah, Vic Chestnut's cover version of It's the End of the World as We Know It is nuts. Yeah, very, very odd take on the song. But there are some other kind of cooler, kind of more streamlined versions on here. Band of Susans do A Million from the Chronic Town EP. Very cool. They make it their own. That's what you need to do with a cover version. Yeah, and lots of kind of scrappy, punky, post-hardcore bands. You get, Jawbreaker doing Pretty Persuasion. You do Jawbox doing Low. Yeah, there's lots of this kind of stuff on this album. And, if you like that and you're kind of quite fond of the earlier half of REM's career, then, you'll probably dig some stuff on here. Okay, 1993. I briefly mentioned it earlier. This is No Alternative. This is one of the Red Hot series, which doesn't have Red Hot in the title. And while I've just been talking about REM and their tribute, here you get a specific tribute to REM in Pavement's Unseen Power of the Picket Fence. Yeah, this song is a proper tribute to REM. This is Malcolm singing about some of his favourite REM songs. Yeah, he shares the fact that, Time After Time was his least favourite song. Yeah, and there are some other kind of goodies in here. You get Bob Mould's track, Can't Fight It. American Music Club do All Your Jeans Were Too Tight. And there's a hidden track. This was one of those things of the 90s, wasn't it? Loads of albums like to kind of tuck away a hidden track at the end of a CD. Here you get Nirvana doing Sappy. It was actually originally credited as being called Verse, Chorus, Verse, but I believe there was subsequently another kind of Nirvana track which took that name, and this track was actually subsequently renamed Sappy. You see it as Sappy on lots of other compilations, so Sappy is the track you get on No Alternative. Yeah, 93 again, you get Born to Choose, a charity compilation on Rykodisc for pro-choice charities, advocating for, increased access to safe, abortion services. Yeah, there's a few live cuts on this, which did tend to sneak into some of these, but there are some real goodies too. But the real highlight is Pavement's Greenlander. So yeah, at the time of the release of this compilation, 93, we were in kind of that lull between Pavement's Slanted and Enchanted and Crooked Rain, Crooked Rain. So, you know, any kind of rare or obscure Pavement tracks were like gold dust to fans of the band who had just kind of turned onto them. It's a really, really good one. Yeah, it's kind of a cousin to Here from Slanted and Enchanted, if that kind of gives you an idea of where this sits in the kind of the band's catalogue. Yeah, and there's a smattering of other cool tracks on this one. Mekon's do Born to Choose, the song that gives the compilation its title. You get HIV Baby from Soundgarden, and you also get Filipino Box Spring Hog, which is brilliant. It's a Tom Waits kind of outtake, I believe, from kind of Bone Machine sessions, I believe. Okay, a tribute and a charity album here. Sweet Relief, 1993, a benefit for Victoria Williams. Yeah, Victoria Williams had recently been diagnosed with MS, so this charity was kind of set with the aim of helping out professional musicians, you know, pay for healthcare. So yeah, there's some really good covers of Victoria Williams' song on here. Maria McKee's version of Opelousas, Sweet Relief, is great. Giant Sand also do Big Fish, but there's some kind of slightly more kind of left of center takes on her songs as well. Shudder to Think do Animal Wild, and Buffalo Tom do Merry-Go-Round. Okay, just a tribute, this one, 1994, If I Were a Carpenter, a tribute to the music of The Carpenters. Sonic Youth, here they are again. They did a cover of Superstar, which was probably the highest profile release off this album. You know, it was a single with a music video. You've probably seen it if you're a fan of the band. But yeah, this is a pretty good compilation. It also features American Music Club doing Goodbye to Love. Shonen Knife do Top of the World. Very, very cool song for them to have a go at. And Grantley Buffalo does We've Only Just Begun. These all kind of nail the Carpenters feel, whilst kind of, you know, bringing something new to the songs. Okay, keeping moving. We're in 1995 now. Here's a tribute to Joy Division called A Means to an End, the music of Joy Division. The title says, oh, really? That's what it is. It's a selection of, you know, indie alternative underground bands covering Joy Division songs. Yeah, some people really get under the skin of the songs here whilst kind of staying, you know, defiantly themselves. Girls Against Boys, She's Lost Control. Very good indeed. Not slavish take at all. Really channels their own sound. In fact, similarly, the bands who've got a really strong kind of core sound, a core aesthetic, they do really well on this compilation. Low do a slowed down kind of typically low version of Transmission. Sublime cover. And Codeine, yeah, they have a go at Atmosphere, which kind of fits them like a glove. And they keep coming. I think this one's 95, maybe 96. This is the Help album for the War Child charity. This kind of represents and helps out children and young people who are kind of affected by kind of armed conflicts. This was at the time of the war in Serbia, Bosnia, the former Yugoslavia. But this one, it's quite an odd one in that it was kind of an event, if you see what I mean. The whole thing was recorded in a single day in September that year. And it was in shops by the following weekend. Literally, they turned it round from recording to being able to buy it in the space of about 6 days. This is very heavy on the kind of Britpop artists of the day. You get Oasis and Friends making an appearance. Blur, Suede, the Stone Roses all feature on this. You get the first appearance of Lucky by Radiohead. This was a song that would, you know, go on to appear on OK Computer. And you get kind of the odd cover version. Manic Street Preachers do a version of Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head. You do get a lot of the kind of the dance, electronic, kind of hip-hop influenced acts of the UK of that time too. So you get tracks by Portishead, Massive Attack, Orbital, the Stereo MCs. 96, Sweet Relief 2. This is Gravity of the Situation. This one focusing on the songs of Vic Chestnut. Yeah, I've talked at great length on one of my other videos about Vic Chestnut. He's one of my favourite artists, a supremely talented singer-songwriter, and he's very well represented with some of the cover versions here. Garbage bring their own kind of thing to kick my ass, and they make that transformation really work. REM, they take his song Sponge, and they kind of spin it out. It's quite a personal tale, the way Vic sings it. They turn it into a kind of bigger, more widescreen, kind of almost an apocalyptic take on this song. Yeah, Vic's close friend, Kristen Hirsch, she does Panic Pure. Very sensitive, very reverent, very Kristen Hirsch. I think the most famous cover on this is Guilty by Association, which was covered by Joe Henry, and he enlisted his sister-in-law to help out on the vocals, as Vic did with Michael Stipe in his version. Joe Henry's sister-in-law in this case was Madonna. 1996 again, and we have The Smiths Is Dead. This is a tribute compilation to The Smiths' Queen Is Dead album on the 10th anniversary of its release. Yeah, again, we're talking 1996 here, and there is a heavy focus again on Britpop or artists of that kind of generation on this album. Yeah, the Boo Radleys cover the title track, The Queen Is Dead. Supergrass do Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others. Billy Bragg, who was actually quite a long time collaborator with Johnny Marr, he does Never Had No One Ever, particularly well, I think. Yeah, I own this one. I always found this one just a little flat for me. It never really sounds like anyone gets under the skin of much of the source material. I think Billy Bragg probably does the best job here, actually. Still 96 here, and we get a charity one. This is the Lounge Acts Defense and Relocation album. Yeah, this was a charity record to raise funds for the legendary Chicago live venue, Lounge Acts. Very close to the Wax Trax record store in Chicago. Yeah, it featured very prominently in the film High Fidelity, if you've ever seen that. So the venue came under pressure at the time, as many did, from neighbours due to kind of gentrification of the local neighbourhood. The usual stuff, noise complaints, that kind of thing. And following the release of this, it did have a short stay of execution, but it did eventually close in the year 2000. Yeah, I'm lucky enough to own a poster of the last show at the Lounge Acts. Yeah, this is a screen print by Jay Ryan of birdmachine.com and of the band Dianoga. Yeah, he's got a very distinctive kind of artwork style, which, yeah, I'd urge you to kind of chase his stuff up if you remotely like the look of this poster. You get Killers by Shellac. Very short, very sharp, very good. Yeah, the Jesus Lizard give you Uncommonly Good, which is kind of a sped up version of their album track Uncomfortably Slow. Yeah, I probably like this better than the slow version, to be honest. Yeah, Sebado contribute the track Whole Hog. And there's a host of other pretty cool tracks by a list of bands. Juna 44, The Mekons, Tortoise, Yola Tango, Archers of Life. Yeah, this is a real good one. And finally, to get to the end of this mammoth list that I've come up with, also from 1996, we have Whore. Various artists play Wire. Just a tribute, this one. Yeah, considering kind of Wire's music, this is a really uncharacteristically warm kind of tribute to the band. And it does feature contributions from a number of bands or musicians or artists who would collaborate in some form with Wire. Band of Susans contribute Ahead. There would be a brief kind of super group called Gilbert Poss Stenger, featuring Robert Poss, Susan Stenger, and Bruce Gilbert of Wire, which kind of performed sporadically throughout the 90s. Leica do a version of German Shepherds. Margaret Fiedler of Leica would kind of join Wire for live work during the period around about the time of the Object 47 album. You also get a version here from the ex-Lion Tamers. They do a version of On Returning. This is kind of quite a joke, really, because the ex-Lion Tamers are a Wire tribute band. Wire themselves booked them as main tour support for a 1987 tour of the US. So it's quite nice to see them kind of give them space here on this compilation. And you do get a few covers here from bands who would be kind of quite elusive at this time, you know. They would be between albums, or they'd kind of disappeared for a while, or they were just about to disappear. So you get My Bloody Valentine doing their version of Map Reference 41 Degrees North, 93 Degrees West. You get Bark Psychosis with a version of Three Girl Rumba. You get Lush with a version of Mannequin. I mean, this was the year that they would lose their drummer, Chris Ackland, to suicide. Lush would break up shortly after this. Yeah, you also get cool numbers by Godflesh, Scanner, Lee Ronaldo of Sonic Youth, Mike Watt, ex of the Minutemen. And there we are. That's a pretty exhaustive list, I think. Yeah, a lot of these compilations were kind of pretty high profile at the time. And like I say, the tracks from these are the kind of things that would get passed around on mixtapes or mixed CDs from your mates all the time. They're just kind of interesting little things that you wouldn't find anywhere else. Yeah, that's it from me. I think I've kept you long enough. Please, like, comment below if there's anything in this video you want to talk about or you particularly liked. In the meantime, yeah, come back. We'll talk again. Bye for now.